These are notes for Chapter 9, Section 6. Today we'll be learning about the quadratic formula. Now hopefully you already have this formula memorized. However, we're going to have to make a couple modifications in order to be able to best use our calculator. So here we have x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to put parentheses around just the b part. So it'll be, when you type it in, negative parentheses, whatever your b number is, and then a parenthesis. Plus or minus the square root. Again, you want to put parentheses just around the b, so you put the number in there and square it, minus 4ac, so put the parentheses around the 4 to the c. And then at the bottom, you'll do your parentheses around 2a. So those are the sections that we're going to do today. So it tells you that a is the first number in front of x to the second, b is the first number in front of x, and c is the last number without an x or an x squared. Now also notice that it is equal to 0. That's important. Before we start solving any of these equations, we have to have it equal to 0. So for the first problem, it says, what are the solutions of x to the second minus 8 equals 2x? So step 1 is to make sure the equation is in the correct order. Means that the equation must be equal to 0 before using the quadratic formula. So in this case, I have to subtract 2x from both sides to make it equal 0. Now I'm going to put that 2x in between the x to the second and the minus 8. So my equation will look like x to the second minus 2x minus 8 equals 0. So it goes from x squared, x number, and it equals 0 at the end. So step 2, identify a, b, and c. A is the number in front of x to the second, which happens to be a 1. It's an invisible one, but it's still there. B is negative 2 for the minus 2x, and c is minus 8, which is at the end without an x squared or an x. Step 3, plug it into the formula. So like I said before, we're going to use parentheses. So it'll be x equals negative, parentheses, the b number, which was negative 2, plus or minus the square root, parentheses again, the b number, negative 2 again, squared, minus 4 times a times c, that's in parentheses, all over, in parentheses at the bottom, 2a. So then we're going to start simplifying, and I'm going to do this in 3 steps. I'm going to simplify this first part of the top of the fraction. I'm going to simplify the square root, and I'm going to simplify the bottom part. So I can do that using a calculator. So the first part I plug in is negative, parentheses, negative 2, parentheses, and that'll give you 2. Plus or minus stays in the middle at the top. Then I can plug in this whole square root. So when I do that, I'm going to do square root, parentheses, negative 2 squared, minus parentheses 4 times 1 times negative 8, and the parentheses. If you hit enter, you should get 6. And then all over, and then you'll do parentheses 2 times 1 and get 2. Please plug this in each of these parts into your calculators. If you are not getting the numbers that I got here, please pause the video and get some help. It's really important that you know how to type everything into your calculator because you're going to be relying on your calculator a lot this section. So then we have to deal with the plus and minus. So I'm going to have one equation that adds the top numbers, so 2 plus 6, all divided by 2. So 2 plus 6 is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So one answer will be 4. And then I'll split it off and have another part that is subtracting. So 2 minus 6 all over 2. 2 minus 6 is negative 4. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. So my second answer is negative 2. So x equals 4 and negative 2. Number 2. Guided practice. So now it's asking, what are the solutions of x to the second minus 4x equals 21? So go ahead and pause this video and work out the solutions. The first thing you should have done is moved that 21 over by subtracting 21 from both sides. Make it equaling 0. So that means your A value will be 1, your B value will be -4, and your C value will be -21. When you plug it into the quadratic formula, you'll get x equals -4 plus or minus the big square root of -4 squared minus 4 times 1 times -21 all over 2 times 1. When you solve this, you should get x to equal 7 and -3. If you did not get 7 and -3, again, pause the video and get some help, because usually it's a calculator error, especially if you had this equation and all the numbers plugged in to begin with. Okay, now on to problem number 2. Problem number 2 says, in shot put, an athlete throws a heavy metal ball through the air. The arc of the ball can be modeled by the equation y equals -0.04x to the second plus 0.84x plus 2. So that's the equation that you're going to use in the quadratic formula. A, B, C. Where x is the horizontal distance in meters from the athlete and y is the height in meters of the ball, the first question is asking how far from the athlete will the ball land? Round to the nearest hundredth of a meter. So a hundredth will be 2 decimal places, just like there is in the beginning problem. So we're going to first have to put this equation in the proper order. It already is. I have x squared, x, and then a number. Then I have to identify A, B, and C. Well, A is going to be -0.04, B is going to be 0.84, and C is going to be 2. My next step is to plug this into the quadratic formula. So I will have x equals -b, b is 0.84, plus or minus a big square root of that same number b squared, minus, in parentheses, 4 times my A number times C, all over 2 times A. Again, I am going to go ahead and simplify these three separately. So -0.84 will be -0.84. Plus or minus, if I plug this big square root into my calculator, I should get 1.0127 all over 2 times -0.04 is -0.08. Again, I'm going to split this equation into 2 parts. One where I'm going to add -0.84 plus 1.0127 and divide by -0.08. Okay, if I do that, I will end up with -2.16. Then on the next one, I'm going to subtract -0.84 minus 1.0127, all divided by -0.08. And when I simplify that, I'll get positive 23.16. Now, only one of these makes sense. It's asking for how far from the athlete will the ball land, while negative numbers, when you're talking distance, do not make sense. So the only one that makes sense is 23.16. So the distance away from the athlete will be 23.16 meters away. So that's going to be your final answer in this case. Okay, next guided practice problem is saying a batter strikes a baseball. The equation y equals -0.05 x to the second plus 0.7x plus 3.5 models its path, where x is the horizontal distance in feet the ball travels and y is the height in feet of the ball. How far from the batter will the ball land? Round to the nearest tenth of a foot. So it's already set up, our equation's already set up in the right order. So pulling out A should be -0.05, B should be 0.7, and C should be 3.5. I would like you to go ahead and pause this video, plug these numbers into the quadratic formula, use your calculator, simplify, and then replay this video to double check your answers. So you should get a distance of 17.9 feet. If you got anything different from 17.9 feet, please pause this video and get some help. It's very important that you understand how to complete problems using the quadratic formula.